What if reality isn't a place you inhabit, but a song you are singing? And what if the most important question isn't, what should I do with my life? But what is the melody my soul is vibrating? An ancient Hermetic text whispers a stunning secret. The universe is not matter, it is mind. We often dismiss this as a beautiful metaphor, but what if it's the operating manual for reality itself? For millennia, this idea wasn't confined to the sands of Egypt. It echoed in the Hindu concept of Brahman, the single infinite consciousness from which all things emerge. It flowed through the Taoist understanding of the Tao, the indivisible, natural rhythm of the cosmos. And it resonated in the words of Christian mystics like Meister Eckhart, who spoke of a divine spark within the soul, a silent inner kingdom that mirrors the kingdom of God. All these traditions, separated by oceans and centuries, were pointing to the same monumental truth. The reality we perceive with our five senses is just the surface layer, the visible notes of a much deeper, invisible music. They were teaching that our consciousness isn't just a passenger in this universe, it is the instrument through which the universe experiences itself. What we are about to explore isn't just a forgotten philosophy, it's a key to retuning your perception, to start hearing the symphony behind the noise of daily life. A journey to understand the 7 universal laws that compose this cosmic melody. To truly grasp this, we must perform a kind of surgery on our perception. Right now, you might be sitting in a chair, holding a phone, feeling the solid ground beneath your feet. It all seems so real, so firm, so separate from you. This is the great illusion of the senses. The Hermetic axiom doesn't just challenge this, it shatters it. The all is mind, the universe is mental. Imagine reality not as a collection of objects, but as a single infinite ocean of consciousness. And everything you see, feel, and experience, the stars, the trees, your own body, your very thoughts, are not separate islands, but simply waves rising and falling within this one ocean. This isn't a New Age idea. It is one of humanity's oldest and most profound realizations. In the Vedas, this is the relationship between Atman, the individual soul, and Brahman, the cosmic soul. They are not two different things. They are one temporarily experiencing the illusion of separation, a divine play called Maya. The Taoists teach that the 10,000 things of the material world all arise from the single formless Tao. Even the mystics of the Christian tradition spoke of the world as a theophany, a manifestation of God, declaring that we live and move and have our being within this divine consciousness. Think of our collective reality as a universal broadcast, a single complex frequency being transmitted from the heart of the cosmos. Our minds, our consciousness, are not the source of the broadcast. They are the receivers. We are tuned to a very specific channel called human perception, which decodes this cosmic vibration into trees, and gravity, and joy, and sorrow. But what if there are other channels? What if the reality we experience is just one possible interpretation of an infinitely more complex signal? This is the first and most critical shift in awareness. To move from seeing yourself as a small, fragile being navigating a vast, indifferent universe to understanding yourself as a wave in the universal ocean of mind. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, experiencing itself from a unique point of view. So if reality truly is a mind, a single consciousness dreaming all of this into existence, then what are its thoughts? And more importantly, what are the rules of its thinking? This mental broadcast isn't a one-way street. It's interactive, and the quality of our receiver, our individual mind, determines the quality of the reality we experience. If our receiver is clouded by the static of fear, past traumas, and limiting beliefs, then the signal gets distorted. We perceive a world of scarcity, conflict, and separation, not because that is the universe's true nature, but because that is all our current state of consciousness allows us to decode. We are listening to a symphony through a broken radio, and we blame the music for the static. Here lies the great paradox that the ancient sages confronted. If the universe is a single unified mind, a perfect and harmonious melody, why does our own mind feel so chaotic, so fragmented, so loud? Why is there a constant inner monologue of judgment, worry, and desire? Consider for a moment that this is all a dream, not your dream, but the dream of a single universal dreamer. And in this dream, the dreamer is not only creating the stars and the galaxies, it is also dreaming every single one of us into existence. The profound question these traditions ask is this: Are you merely a character in the dream, helplessly subject to its script? Or are you the dreamer itself, pretending to be a character so that you can experience the thrill of forgetting and the joy of remembering who you truly are? This is not a riddle meant to confuse, but an invitation to look deeper. The ancient schools of wisdom weren't just philosophical clubs for discussing abstract ideas. They were laboratories of consciousness. They understood that if this reality is a dream, then there must be a way to wake up within it. And to do that, they didn't look to the skies. They looked to the source code. They studied the timeless principles upon which the dream itself was built. This universal truth, this cosmic melody, wasn't discovered by accident. It has been preserved and passed down through a silent river of wisdom that flows beneath the surface of official history. At the head of that river in the Western world stands a figure shrouded in myth, Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great. He was said to be a master of the physical, mental, and spiritual realms, a guide who understood the source code of reality. The teachings attributed to Hermes were never shouted from the rooftops. They were kept hermetic, sealed, protected, not out of arrogance, but out of a profound understanding of human nature. This knowledge is like fire. In the right hands it can illuminate and warm, but in the hands of a mind unprepared, it can burn and destroy. The truth was whispered, shared only with those whose souls were tuned to the right frequency, those who were ready to listen with the ear of the soul, not just the intellect. But Hermes was not singing a solo. Across the globe, other masters were hearing the very same symphony and writing it down in their own unique languages. In the valleys of the Indus, the rishis of the Vedic tradition were contemplating the great Hermetic law of correspondence. When they declared, "Aham Brahmasmi," I am Brahman, they were expressing the same truth. The microcosm of the individual self, the Atman, is a perfect reflection of the macrocosm, the universal consciousness. As above, so below was not just a philosophy, it was a lived experience. In ancient China, Lao Tzu watched the flow of rivers and the bending of bamboo and described the law of rhythm and polarity. His teachings on the Tao, the effortless way, are a perfect map of the universal dance between yin and yang, the feminine and the masculine, action and stillness, expansion and contraction. He taught that wisdom lies not in resisting this flow, but in moving with it. And in the quiet cloisters of medieval Europe, Christian mystics meditated on the nature of the Logos, the divine word or thought through which all of creation came into being. This is the very essence of the principle of mentalism. They understood that the universe is the product of a divine imagination, and that to know God, one had to first know the divine spark within. Even the Buddha, sitting under the Bodhi tree, taught a core aspect of the law of vibration when he revealed the truth of anicca, or impermanence. His insight that everything is in a constant state of flux, that nothing is static, is a foundational note in this cosmic song. Attachment to form is suffering, because form is always changing, always vibrating, always becoming something new. These were not separate schools of thought discovering different truths. They were different ensembles, playing the same symphony with different instruments. They were all pointing to a set of foundational principles that govern the movement of consciousness and the manifestation of reality. The sheet music for this grand composition has a name, the 7 Hermetic Principles. So how can we learn to read this music? How can we transform this ancient philosophy into a living, breathing practice? This river of wisdom sometimes flowed through unexpected channels. Consider the Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome. When they spoke of the Logos, they weren't just describing a cold, rational principle. They saw it as a divine fire, an intelligent consciousness that permeates and organizes the entire cosmos. Their central teaching, that we cannot control external events but we can control our perception of them, is a profoundly practical application of the principle of mentalism. They understood that our inner state dictates our experience of reality, that the quality of our mind is the quality of our life. They were, in their own way, Hermetic masters of the inner world. This is the beauty of the perennial philosophy. It wears many masks but has only one face. It speaks in every language, yet its message is always the same. It tells us that the universe is not a random accident, but an intelligent, unfolding process. It reminds us that we are not strangers in this cosmos, but integral parts of its expression. It's funny, isn't it? Our modern world prides itself on connection, on global networks and instant information, yet we often feel more fragmented and isolated than ever. We've built a world of incredible external complexity, but we've forgotten the simple, unifying truths that connect us to the cosmos and to each other. We study the history of kings and empires, but we ignore the silent history of enlightenment. This hidden lineage is our true inheritance. It's a legacy not of power over others, but of mastery over oneself. It's a reminder that the greatest temple is not built of stone, but of consciousness. The most sacred text is not written on papyrus, but is inscribed in the very fabric of our being. And the greatest mystery isn't hidden in a secret tomb. It's waiting to be discovered behind our own eyes. And the key to unlocking that temple, to reading that text, is to understand the rules by which it was all created. So let's move from the library of ancient wisdom into the laboratory of your own life. This knowledge was never meant to be a collection of fascinating ideas. It was meant to be a map, a functional guide for navigating your own existence. Let's walk through the 7 great principles, not as abstract theories, but as practical tools for perception. The first principle is the foundation of everything, the principle of mentalism. As we've explored, it states, "The all is mind, the universe is mental." The clear explanation is that the fabric of reality is consciousness. Everything begins as a thought, an idea, a vibration in the cosmic mind. The way this anchors in your human experience is through your own inner world. Think about the last project you completed, a meal you cooked, or even a simple conversation you had. Before it ever became a physical reality, it was an idea, an image, a feeling in your mind. Your inner world is a microcosm of how the entire universe operates. Your mind is a creative center. The bridge to practice here is not just to think positive. It is to become a conscious guardian of your mental space. The practice is to ask, what seeds am I planting in the garden of my mind today? Are you watering seeds of doubt and fear, or seeds of trust and possibility? The universe, the great fertile ground, doesn't judge the seed. It simply makes it grow. Next, we have the second law, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This means that there is a harmony and a direct reflection between all planes of existence. The patterns of the galaxies are echoed in the structure of an atom. The cycles of the seasons are mirrored in the cycles of our lives. You can see this law in action everywhere. Look at your personal space, your desk, your room, your car. Does its state of order or chaos reflect your current inner state? Often our external world is a direct symbolic printout of our internal landscape. A cluttered room can be the mirror of a cluttered mind. A neglected home can reflect a neglected self. The practice here is to use your external world as a diagnostic tool and a sacred mirror. Instead of just cleaning your room, ask, what inner chaos is this mess showing me? And conversely, when you consciously bring order to your external environment, you are sending a powerful signal to your inner world that you are ready for clarity and harmony. The third principle is the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. This means reality is not static. It is a dynamic dance of energy. The difference between a rock, a sound, and a thought is simply the frequency of their vibration. You feel this principle in your own body every moment. Think of the difference between the feeling of joy and the feeling of grief. Joy has a high, light, expansive frequency. Grief feels heavy, dense, contractive. These are not just poetic descriptions, they are literal vibrational states. Your emotions are your personal vibrational barometer. The practical application is to become a master of your own frequency. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to be happy. It means learning how to consciously shift your state. 5 minutes of listening to music that uplifts you can change your entire day. A walk in nature, a moment of sincere gratitude, even a deep conscious breath, these are all powerful tuning forks. The question to ask is, does this choice, this person, this environment raise my vibration or lower it? The fourth law is the principle of polarity. Everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. This teaches us that opposites are not different things but two extremes of the same thing. Hot and cold are both degrees of temperature. Light and darkness are degrees of light. Love and fear are degrees of the same emotional spectrum. This is one of the most liberating principles. When you are feeling fear, you don't need to fight it or destroy it. You are simply on one end of a pole. The practice is not to eliminate the fear, but to consciously slide up the pole towards its opposite. Courage, which is not the absence of fear, but the presence of love. The practical wisdom here is emotional alchemy. When you feel anger, don't suppress it. Ask, what is the powerful fuel of this anger trying to move me towards? It could be a need for boundaries, for justice, for action. You can transmute the raw energy of a negative emotion into a constructive force. You are not a victim of your feelings. You are the alchemist who can transform them. The fifth is the principle of rhythm. Everything flows, out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. Life moves in cycles, like a pendulum. There will be periods of expansion and growth, followed by periods of rest and integration. There will be highs and there will be lows. This is crucial for our modern obsession with constant progress. We think if we're not always moving up, we're failing. That's a myth. Nature doesn't work that way, and neither do we. A tree doesn't grow in an endless summer. It needs the deep rest of winter to gather strength. The practice is to honor the cycles. When you are in a high-energy, expansive phase, act, create, and share. When you feel the pendulum swing back into a low-energy, introspective phase, don't panic. Rest, reflect, and integrate. This isn't a setback. It's a necessary part of the cycle. Ask yourself, what season is my soul in right now? Is it time to plant, or is it time to let the ground rest? The sixth law is the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. There is no such thing as chance or luck. Everything that happens is the result of a chain of causes, whether visible or invisible. Your current life situation is the effect of past causes, your thoughts, your choices, your actions, your beliefs. This can be a hard pill to swallow, but it is the ultimate empowerment. It moves you from the position of a victim to the position of a creator. You reap what you sow. The practice is radical responsibility. Look at an area of your life where you feel stuck. Instead of blaming external circumstances, ask the courageous question, what are the internal causes that I have been feeding that are contributing to this effect? And even more powerfully, start planting new seeds today. Every conscious thought, every kind word, every intentional action is a cause that will inevitably create a future effect. Finally, the seventh principle, the principle of gender. Gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. This has nothing to do with physical gender. It refers to two universal creative energies. The masculine principle, yang, is the energy of doing, directing, focus, and action. The feminine principle, yin, is the energy of being, receiving, intuition, and nurturing. Every creative act, from starting a business to having a child, requires a balance of both. An idea is first received, feminine, and then it must be acted upon, masculine. You need the intuition to feel the right path and the focus to walk it. The practice is to find balance within yourself. Are you all action and no intuition, burning yourself out? Or are you all feeling and no action, lost in dreams? The work is to integrate both, to learn to listen to that quiet inner voice, feminine, and then have the courage to bring its wisdom into the world, masculine. These seven principles are not beliefs. They are the mechanics of reality. They are the music theory of the cosmic symphony. And now, you hold the sheet music in your hands. So now, we have the mechanics of reality, the seven laws, the rules of the cosmic game. With them, we can learn to navigate our lives with more grace, more awareness, more power. But this begs a much deeper question. If these are the laws that govern the story of our lives, who is writing the story? For years, we operate under one assumption, that we are the main character in an epic novel that is being written for us. We use these principles to become a better character, to navigate the plot twists, to fight the dragons, and to hopefully reach a happy ending. We strive to master the art of being the hero, but here is the soul-shattering twist, the paradoxical peak that all the great mystical traditions point towards, often only in whispers. What if you are not the character in the book? What if you are the author, who has written themselves into the story and has deliberately chosen to forget that they are holding the pen? Pause and feel the weight of that. This single idea changes the entire purpose of the journey. The goal is no longer to win the game as the character. The goal is for the author, the universal consciousness, the all, God, to fully experience the thrill of the narrative through the character's eyes. The suspense, the heartbreak, the confusion, the joy, it's all part of a divine plot written for the sake of the experience itself. The ancient sages of India called this concept Lila, the divine play. The universe is not a grim test, but a cosmic drama created by consciousness for its own delight. The Gnostics spoke of a divine spark, a fragment of the ultimate Godhead, trapped in the illusion of material existence, whose secret purpose was to awaken from the dream. The wave doesn't struggle to become a better wave to impress the ocean. The wave is the ocean, expressing itself in a unique and temporary form. So, the 7 laws are not just tools for the character to build a better life. They are the literary devices the author uses to make the story interesting. The law of rhythm creates the dramatic tension of highs and lows. The law of polarity creates the conflict between light and shadow. The law of cause and effect ensures the plot is coherent and meaningful. The question then ceases to be, how can I use these laws to get what I want? It transforms into a far more profound inquiry. What is the cosmic story that is seeking to be told through me? And what happens to the novelty when the character finally realizes they are the author? This isn't just a metaphor. Consider the very nature of your awareness. It's not a thing, it's a space. It's the silent, motionless screen upon which all the chaotic images of your life, your thoughts, your emotions, your memories, flicker and dance. The character is the movie. You are the screen. The movie is loud, dramatic, and constantly changing. The screen is silent, peaceful, and has never moved. All spiritual practice, in its essence, is simply the act of shifting your identification from the movie to the screen. And this leads to an even more staggering revelation, one that shatters our most fundamental belief, our belief in the linear passage of time. The character in the story experiences time as a straight line, a past that is gone, a present that is fleeting, and a future that is yet to come. But the author exists outside the book. For the author, all pages, the first, the middle, and the last, exist simultaneously. The author can open the book to any page, at any moment. What if your soul is not a character moving along a single timeline? What if it is the author, experiencing a vast library of stories all at once? What if that strange feeling of déjà vu is not a brain glitch, but the character momentarily sensing the author's awareness of another page, another plotline happening? Right now, what if your deepest intuitions are not just hunches but whispers from the author, bleeding through the pages, reminding the character of the grander story they are a part of? The journey is not about the character escaping the book to become the author. That is impossible because they were never separate. The journey is about the character becoming so lucid, so aware, that the light of the author begins to shine through its eyes. The awakened person is not someone who has escaped the human drama, but someone who plays their part with a divine twinkle in their eye, a secret smile, knowing it is all a magnificent self-created play. They are in the world, but not of it. They feel the pain, but are not the pain. They pursue the goals, but their peace does not depend on the outcome. They are the perfect paradox, a finite character who has remembered their infinite nature. Once the veil is lifted, even for a moment, it can never be fully closed again. The character who now knows they are the author can no longer play the game in the same naive way. This isn't just a fun philosophical idea, it's a profound ethical and existential challenge. The knowledge comes with a weight, the weight of responsibility. If you are a character, a victim of circumstance, you have the luxury of blaming the world, of blaming others, of blaming the plot for your suffering. It wasn't my fault. I had no choice, but the world is unfair. These are the lines every character is given. But what happens when the author awakens within? You realize you are holding the pen. Every line, every scene, every choice is being written, or at least consented to by you. Suddenly, every moment becomes an act of creation. The way you respond to a traffic jam, the energy you bring to a difficult conversation, the thoughts you entertain in the silence of your own mind. These are no longer insignificant events. They are brushstrokes on the canvas of reality. You realize that you are not just painting your own small corner. Your canvas is interwoven with every other canvas. Your thoughts, your vibrations, are contributing to the collective dream, the shared story of humanity. This is the great teaching of karma, viewed through a Hermetic lens. It's not a cosmic system of reward and punishment. It is the simple, immutable law of creative consequence. The author is always responsible for their work. If you write a story filled with themes of anger, resentment, and division, you, as the consciousness experiencing that story, must live within the world you have created. To change the world, you must first change the story you are writing. This also redefines our relationships. When we see others, we no longer see just characters, rivals, or allies. We begin to see other authors, other facets of the one universal consciousness, playing their own parts in this grand play. Compassion arises naturally, not as a moral duty, but as a deep recognition. You see their struggles, their flaws, their beauty, and you understand it's all part of the story they are writing for their own soul's experience. How could you judge another's story when you are so intimately aware of the complexities of writing your own? The awakening is not an escape from life's problems. In many ways, it makes them more poignant. The pain of the world is felt more deeply because you recognize it as your own, but you no longer drown in it. You are not a helpless character being tossed by the waves. You are the stillness of the deep ocean, which allows the waves to rise and fall without losing its own profound peace. The ultimate implication is this: you must choose. Do you continue to play the role of the amnesiac character, lost in the plot, or do you embrace the terrifying, exhilarating responsibility of the conscious author and begin to write a new chapter? This freedom is both a gift and a burden. It seems the oldest advice in the world is to know thyself. Funny how that's still the hardest final boss to beat. Because to know thyself as the author means giving up your most cherished story, the story of your own victimhood. It means you can no longer find solace in blaming the past, your parents, or society for the script you are living. The pen is in your hand, it always has been, and the blank page ahead is waiting. What will you write? This question becomes the central koan of a conscious life. Our koan in the Zen tradition is a riddle that cannot be solved by the rational mind, but only by a leap in consciousness. Will you write a story of love or a story of fear? Because, as the law of polarity teaches, these are the two primal inks from which all other stories are made. Every choice, no matter how small, is a vote for the kind of universe you want to experience. When you choose forgiveness over resentment, you are casting a vote for a universe of compassion. When you choose trust in the face of uncertainty, you are casting a vote for a universe of benevolent flow. When you choose to see the divine spark in someone you disagree with, you are casting a vote for a universe of unity. But this isn't a one-time election. It happens in every single moment. This is the radical responsibility the great traditions speak of. It is not about becoming perfect. The author doesn't need the character to be perfect. The story would be terribly boring if they were. It's about becoming aware of the choice, aware of the pen in your hand, aware that with every thought you are either perpetuating an old, tired narrative, or you are daring to write a line of a more beautiful story. And perhaps the most courageous act of all is to look upon the messy, beautiful, sometimes tragic story of your life so far, and instead of wishing to rewrite the past, you simply whisper to the character who has endured it all, "Thank you for the experience. Now let's see what we write next." And so we arrive at the edge of the map. We started by learning to read the sheet music of the universe, the 7 laws. We then dared to imagine that we were not just the musicians, but the composer. And finally, we confronted the staggering revelation that we might be the silent listener for whom the entire symphony is being played. But this profound journey from character to author leaves us with one final cosmic dilemma. A question that echoes in the heart of the Vedanta, the Tao, and the deepest mysticisms of every tradition. If we are indeed the universal consciousness writing and experiencing these stories, why do we choose to write stories that include so much struggle, so much pain, so much forgetting? Perhaps the goal of existence isn't comfort, but growth. Perhaps the soul, in its infinite wisdom, knows that a diamond is only formed under immense pressure. Maybe this earthly life, with all its beautiful and terrible polarities, is the ultimate alchemical crucible, a place designed to transmute the raw potential of consciousness into the realized gold of wisdom. Perhaps the universe is not a finished masterpiece, but an eternal work in progress, and our lives are the very process through which it comes to know itself more deeply. Each story of triumph, each story of heartbreak, adds a new verse to the epic of existence, a unique melody to the symphony of the all. The greatest mystery, then, is not what happens after we die. It's that we are alive right now, gifted with this impossible, paradoxical chance to be both the dreamer and the dream. The purpose is not to find the final answer, but to learn how to live within the beautiful, terrifying, and sacred question of what we are. The hunt for understanding is infinite, because the object of our search is infinity itself. And that's our hunt for now, a wild mix of documented history and tantalizing what-ifs based on bibliographical sources. What do you think? Like this journey? Hit subscribe for more mysteries.